Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. A'udhu billahi minash shaitanir rajim. Bismillahir rahmanir rahim. Alhamdulillahi rabbil alameen. Wassalatu wassalamu ala ashrafil anbiya'i wal mursaleen. Khatimin nabiyyin, shafi'il mudhnibin, rahmatan lil alameen. Maulana wa sayyidina Abil Qasim Muhammad. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad. وعلى آله الطيبين الطاهرين لا سيما بقية الله في الأرض أرواحنا له الفداء ولعنة الله على أعدائهم أجمعين من الآن إلى قيام يوم الدين أما بعد فقد قال الله سبحانه وتعالى في قرآنه المجيد بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم وما أرسلناك إلا رحمة للعالمين. Respected Sayyid, respected elders, brothers and sisters, tonight we continue from our general theme on the mercy of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and we continue it into our family situations. It's a very important discussion. It's something that we see in the community very much. Our communities are disintegrating into dysfunctional families, unfortunately. Family, what it should have been, is not that. What Allah had envisaged for the family to be, it is not that. That sacred, delicate, beautiful, loving, merciful family life that we were meant to have has not transpired. Tonight we'll discuss this in the general discussion under the mercy of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. First of all, let us remind ourselves of what our discussion yesterday was. So we said that there is a difference in the mercy between when we call human beings merciful and Allah merciful. With human beings, it's like maybe you can say a hormonal, emotional reaction when we display mercy. For Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, we will never say this, that He goes through any change. Allah cannot go through any change. It's impossible for Him to change in any way. He's always consistent. So we never ascribe human emotions or human things to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. What we say for Allah is that He is merciful without any condition. His mercy just flows. It is absolutely part of His being. There's no change that needs to happen with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Secondly, we had said that Allah has certain friends, awliya. In the words of Imam Ja'far as-Sadiq alayhi salatu wassalam, Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. Imam says, when someone asked him about the ayat which I had recited yesterday, فَلَمَّا آسَفُونَا, regarding Nabi Musa, Allah says, when they made us angry or when they made us upset. So someone comes to Imam and says, how can Allah be upset? Imam replies to him very nicely and says, He doesn't get upset ka'asafina, the way we get upset. وَلَكِنَّهُ خَلَقَ أَوْلِيَاء لِنَفْسِهِ. But He has certain people that He has created for Himself. He has placed His happiness in their happiness. He has placed His sadness or grief in their sadness and grief. And then we went into a little bit of a discussion on some poetry, which I hope that made it a little bit clearer. This applies to Anbiya, this applies to Ma'asumeen, this also applies to Mu'mineen. Very important point. Tonight we're going to look into this in more depth. How does the treatment of others make our own religious lives? There's a very close relationship between Haqqullah and Haqqun Nas. These are two sides of the same coin. Islam cannot survive without Haqqun Nas. It cannot survive definitely without Haqqullah. These are two sides of the same coin. They impact upon each other. This is our discussion for tonight. Yesterday we also said that the mercy of Allah encompasses everything. وَرَحْمَتِ وَسِعَتْ كُلَّ شَيْءٍ. My mercy, Allah says, has encompassed everything. Everything comes under my mercy. In the words of Amirul Mu'mineen, Allahumma inni as'aluka birahmatika allati wasi'at kulla shay. So we reflected on that as well. Then finally, the most delicate point, which I hope you grasped, because this is essential to our discussion today, is that the names of Allah are all around us. The names of Allah, the manifestation of God, is all around us. Now don't misunderstand this. We're not saying that everything is God, this is God, this desk is God, this tissue is God. No, that's not what we're saying. Let's have a mature, sophisticated discussion. What we are saying is that you can see, if you pay attention properly, the presence of God all around you. How will you see the presence of God? through His names and attributes and His list of perfections. So, now we embark on our fresh discussion for today with the barakat of a salawat ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. First of all, we have to accurately understand what is mercy. When we say mercy, when we say Allah is merciful, when we say we have to be merciful, we have to understand what is mercy. Okay? We have a few misconceptions which have grown in the community, which immediately I have to dispel, first of all. For example, some people say that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, we should only ever talk about Him in positive terms. We should only ever talk about Allah in positive terms. We should only mention the bounties of God, the mercy of God, the generosity of God, the kindness of God, the way He forgives, He's forgiving. Absolutely. But let me ask you something. Do we know how better to introduce God, or does God know how better to introduce Himself? You cannot ignore this fact that He has spent portions of the Quran talking about His very anger and His revenge. The very verse that we recited yesterday, فَلَمَّا آسَفُونَا إِنْتَقَمْنَا مِنْهُمْ. We took revenge from them. So let's have a mature discussion. Let's not go into these kinds of things. Allah knows better how to introduce Himself to us. Ma'asumeen know better how to introduce Allah to us. So mercy of Allah, believe me, everything is a mercy of God. Everything. Now we'll come on to that. Someone has a question in their mind, I'm sure. What about the punishments of God? How is that a mercy? What about hell and the descriptions of hell? Fire, lava, burning, flesh, this, that. How on earth is that a mercy of God? It's an interesting question, but very easy to answer, as we'll see. In the time of Amirul Mu'mineen alayhi salatu wassalam, Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. Amirul Mu'mineen had a companion by the name of Abdullah ibn Yahya. What a fantastic companion he was. One of the very close companions of Amirul Mu'mineen. Amirul Mu'mineen has some wonderful companions, by the way. We don't spend long enough talking about them. Inshallah, maybe on a future occasion we can spend some time discussing these wonderful people. One of them was this Abdullah ibn Yahya. Abdullah ibn Yahya, on one occasion, he comes into the blessed presence of Amirul Mu'mineen. Amirul Mu'mineen is having a gathering, he's speaking to people. Abdullah ibn Yahya does the most normal thing you can imagine. He enters into the gathering and he sits on something, maybe like a stool, maybe like a chair, maybe like something like that. He sits on it, something that you would do multiple times a day without any issue. All of a sudden, very strangely, he fell over. He fell off this thing. He fell very badly. And he hit his head very badly on the floor. His head started to bleed. The other companions came around him. Amirul Mu'mineen himself put his blessed hand upon his head and helped him. Then Amirul Mu'mineen said two things. Amirul Mu'mineen says, the first thing is, Alhamdulillah, that Allah gives our lovers their punishments and trials in this world only and not in the hereafter. This is the first thing. This is something that which should give us a lot of confidence and a lot of love towards Ahlul Bayt and Allah, that they have reserved, if we are truly one of their true followers of Ahlul Bayt, inshallah we'll get it here, not so much there. This is our hope. Because believe me, to get it here is much easier than to get it over there. This is the first thing. Then Abdullah ibn Yahya, he asked a question. He says, Amirul Mu'mineen, but what did I do to earn? You're saying that Allah gives His punishments and trials in this world, but what have I done that I've earned the punishment or trial of Allah? What did I do? Amirul Mu'mineen replies. He says, you sat without saying Bismillah. You sat without saying Bismillah. How many people sat today on the floor and said Bismillah? But you didn't fall over, did you? Even though you didn't say Bismillah. So how come he fell over and we didn't? Because his status was such that this was not acceptable from him. More was expected from him. Allah doesn't treat everyone the same. Allah looks at your capacity. Allah looks at your background. Allah looks at your level, and then He'll give you accordingly. What you can take, I cannot take. What I can take, you cannot take. If we were to swap our challenges. You know, it's very easy for us to, for example, open Instagram and look at people's lives and say, mashallah, how happy they are. Mashallah, they're always smiling. Mashallah, she always looks so beautiful. Mashallah, they're always on holiday. Some people, they feel compelled to send me the pictures of their breakfast, lunch and dinner. I don't know why they think I need to know what they're eating, but I'm inundated with pictures of lovely food. Mashallah, they have such a nice lifestyle. But it's not like that. Every challenge of yours I couldn't take. My challenges you can't take. Allah knows where to put these challenges. In any case, so Abdullah ibn Yahya, Amirul Mu'minin, explains to him that you did not recite Bismillah before you sat. So how come he fell off his chair? We don't fall off ours. Why? Because this is a mercy of Allah. You're thinking, how is it a mercy of Allah if someone falls over, fractures their skull maybe, they're bleeding from the head? This is a small thing to give you a wake-up call that next time remember me. It's better you go through that small amount of pain, or it could be a large amount of pain, it's okay. But better you go through that and gain closeness to God than not having gone through that. See, we start to moan and wail and cry and, wah waila and this and that. The smallest things happen and we can't take it. You don't know the hikmat behind this. There's a wisdom behind God sending this your way. He has His own ways of dealing with things. So, in this case, everything is a mercy of God. Now, let's come on to the big question. Hell. How is that a mercy of Allah? Brothers, any of you would like to share your thoughts? How on earth can hell be a mercy of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? Who can answer this question for us? One answer is this. It has two parts to it. One answer is it's a deterrent. In any situation where you have to establish your authority, you need mercy and compassion, you also need authority. Let me tell you something. You go into madrasa right now, you start to teach your class. Your class is completely, for example, if your class is 30, 40 minutes long each class, I'm guessing? Yeah, 30, 40 minutes? 50 minutes, 1 hour maybe? Okay. So you go into your class, you have a room full of children, you begin to teach them, you have no authority in that class. They do all sorts. They start throwing things, they're talking, they're punching each other, they're hitting each other, they're doing all sorts of things. What have you done in that 40 minutes? You've wasted their time, and you've wasted your own time. A person who wants to actually impart something valuable has to have authority. So one of the things is that when you have any educator, when you have any sustainer, a trainer, a murabbi, someone who's actually your guardian, he has to have two things to him. He has to have a merciful side, and he has to have an authority side. Without that, you can't function. Your madrasa will be wasted, your school will be wasted, your university will be wasted. This is number one. Second part. The second part is, if there was no hell on the Day of Judgment, where would all these evil people go? They would run amok. They would cause havoc. They would embark on chaos. Do you know we have some riwayat which say that the people of hell, they actually have the audacity to think, we can get together and break out of this place and we'll break into heaven. This is why they're kept there. They can't come out. Their evil is too great at that time. They have to go through this process. So this is all a mercy. We don't understand it because we only look at one angle. Everything is the mercy of Allah. Why? وَالرَّحْمَةِ وَسِعَتْ كُلَّ شَيْءٍ. Everything is under the mercy of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But we don't see it that way. We think, how can we introduce a wrathful, angry God? We have to be very careful with these words. We are not introducing a wrathful, angry God to anybody. We are introducing an accurate God to people. He knows how best to introduce Himself. He knows why He's given us these names. Is it fair on us just to, for example, select 60 names and leave 40, 70 names and leave 30? This is not fair on us. This is why we have all of these different names of Allah, so that we can appreciate Allah. We can understand Him better, and we can see Him from multiple angles. So anyway, back to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Back to the mercy of Allah. Once you begin to train yourself to see the world in this way, that everything is under the manifestations of the names of Allah, and anything can happen. And Allah can do anything at any time. There's nothing outside His power, and His power is unlimited. Then we will never feel that we have hit a dead end. You will never feel hopeless. You will never feel dejected. Why? Because you have this strong iman and faith that anything can happen. Anything can happen. My Lord has the ability to do anything. Once that feeling and that belief enters into your heart properly and settles in your heart, you will never feel you're at a dead end. The Holy Prophet Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, there was a situation in his blessed life where the two sides of the army, the Muslim army on one side and the Kuffar army on the other side, they were facing off. Battle had not yet commenced, but the two sides were facing each other, they were facing off. At one stage, Rasulullah decided to take a break. He went under a tree and he rested. One of the other soldiers in the Kuffar army, the Kafir army, he saw this and he says, right, this is my opportunity now. The Holy Prophet has removed himself, he's alone, he's got no one around him, there's no one to protect him. I can maybe go around, I'll circle around the long way and I'll pounce upon him, I'll surprise him and I'll kill him. He comes to the Holy Prophet. The Holy Prophet is seated under a tree, eyes are closed and he is resting. This person was named Quras. He takes out his sword, he raises his sword up. The Holy Prophet at that moment opens his eyes. Imagine you open your eyes, there's a man in front of you, you're sat down, you're not ready for anything, he's got his sword raised high above you, ready to come down upon you. He asks the Holy Prophet a question. He says, who will save you from me now? We would probably beg for mercy, we would probably beg him to spare our life, we would probably plead with him that please don't kill me, we'll try to bribe him or something like that. Rasulullah, cool as you can be, says, Allah. No panic, no anxiety. Cool as you like, Allah. So this person got even more angry because he was expecting the Holy Prophet to panic. As he wants to bring down his sword upon the blessed body of Rasulullah, one of the stones beneath his feet, by the power of God, by the will of God, becomes loose. He loses his footing, he falls. As he falls, his sword comes out of his hand. Now the Holy Prophet stands up. The Holy Prophet takes his sword. The Holy Prophet sort of raises it up. Then the Holy Prophet asks him, who is now going to save you from me? You know what he says? Ya Muhammad, afwuka wa karamuk. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. Oh Muhammad, the thing that will save me, from you is your sense of forgiveness and your generosity. Even the dushmanan of Ahlul Bayt knew their character. He says, your generosity and your sense of forgiveness will save me. And the Holy Prophet actually let him go. And they say that few years down the line, this same Quras, the same guy, converted to Islam and actually died in one of the battles in the future on the side of the Muslims. Insan will never ever be despondent. He will never be depressed. He will never be anxious. Why would we be anxious when this whole world is governed by God and the names of God? Why should we be upset when this whole universe is in the hands of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? Why should we be worried when we have our protector all the time looking over us, our beloved Imam of the time? Why should we be angry? Why should we be worried? One of the people, he says, one of the ulama was talking to someone. This person was very much upset. He says, why are you upset? He says, oh, my life is taking a wrong turn and I'm so upset and I don't see any way out. Imam says to him, do your parents pray for you? He says, yes, they pray for me. He says, if your parents pray for you, is there anyone else who loves you more than your parent? He says, no, my parents love me the most. He says, no, your Imam loves you more than your parents. Even if your parents are praying for you, your Imam is definitely praying for you. He's more generous than your parents. He's more everything than your parents for you. So a person who understands it this way will never feel any despondency or depression or anxiety, because Allah is always with us. Coming back now to the names of Allah once again. We are coming onto the family, trust me, but we have to lay these foundations for us to understand it properly. The names of Allah. So when we want to do something, what are we supposed to say? Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Why these names? Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Why with the name of God, Ar-Rahman Ar-Rahim? Why these two names? Why no other names? He has lots of names. Why these two names? This is a very special secret which I'm going to share with you. This is because these two names are the most encompassing of all the names of God. Let me explain why. Allah is the creator. Allah is the sustainer. Allah is the one to give life, no doubt. But if it wasn't for His mercy, why should He give that to anyone else? See, He's the creator. He has the power of creating things. But why should He create? Just be the creator. Stay on your own. No. His mercy necessitates that He creates other things. He wants to give this creative power, He wants it to manifest in something else. He wants to bring other things into creation. Why? His mercy. He's a sustainer. Why should He send us our sustenance? Because He is merciful towards us. Hence, every single attribute of Allah that benefits us, they have to come under the name of Rahmah. Otherwise, He can be all of these things, but we will never know. So everything comes under the rahmah of Allah. Wa rahmati wasi'at kulla shay. Again and again we come back to the same principle, that my mercy encompasses everything. Now we come on to a very special discussion before we enter the discussion on the family. When we talk about Allah and His mercy, so we've already said that everything He does, even those things that at first face value we may not see the rahmah and mercy in them, they are indeed merciful. And now, when you look at the way He has channeled His mercy, we'll see a different angle altogether. How has He channeled His mercy? Where do we get His mercy from? Where's that place that we go to, the well of Allah's mercy, and we can draw the mercy out? Where is that place? Who can tell me? Who can tell me? Where's the well of Allah's mercy? Where do we get it from? Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Mukhtar. Ahlul Bayt. Ahsant. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. Assalamu alaikum ya ahla bayt an-nubuwwa wa mawdi' ar-risala wa mukhtalaf al-malaika wa mahbit al-wahi wa ma'adin ar-rahma. You are the store. You are the treasure trove. You are the mine, M-I-N-E, the mine where the mercy of Allah is found. At times, the Holy Prophet would be seen crying. They would ask him, Ya Rasulullah, why do you cry in this way? What has made you cry? He says, Rahmatan lil ashqiya. I cry for the evil ones in our community. My heart is aggrieved. Ahlul Bayt and Allah. Ahlul Bayt and Allah, they don't want a single person to go to hell. They don't want a single person to experience any difficulty. They don't want this. However, we bring it upon ourselves. So the Holy Prophet's heart used to ache for them. Even though they were in the wrong, there's no doubt about it. But their heart used to ache. They don't want to see anyone getting punished. They are the wells of Allah's mercy. This is where we have to go. So, let us not ever say these things like we don't want a scary God. We don't want a God that we are fearful of. Believe me, if you are not fearful, it has very bad repercussions. Only to have a God that you're only in love with and there's no fear factor, there's no authority, there's no power, this will backfire on us in the long run. Why? Because once you don't have a fear of God, a respect of God, a hurmat of God, then tomorrow when He tells you to do something, you'll say, you know what? He'll forgive me, it's okay. Other religions have fallen foul of this. Other religions which only emphasize the love of God, they have fallen foul of this because they have lost the greatness of Allah. When there's no azamat of Allah, when there's no kibriya of Allah, when there's no awesomeness of Allah in your heart, then it's very easy to be lax in your behavior because everything can be forgiven. He's loving me, he's no problem. I'll make it good with him. You know, we say these kinds of things. We lose that aspect of our relationship with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. In hadith we have the following. Allah's mercy has 100 parts. 100 parts. 99 of them have been reserved for the hereafter. One part of His mercy has been set in this world. Why only one? Because this world doesn't have the capacity to accept more than this one part. It's not the defect of God, it's the defect of this world. The way the world has been arranged by Allah, it doesn't have the capacity to accept more than this one part. Salawat ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Thank you. It doesn't have the capacity to withstand more than one part of the mercy of Allah. So the riwayat tells us that 99 parts of His mercy have been reserved for the hereafter. Every single instance of kindness and mercy that you see in this world is a result of that one part of Allah's mercy, that 1% of His mercy which is in this world. Every kindness, every mercy, every parent being good to their child, child being good to the parent, people helping in charity, people going and doing good stuff for other people, people contributing for other people, teachers having a soft heart for their students, teaching them well. Every single merciful thing you see in this world is a result of that 1% of Allah's mercy. Then the riwayat says that in the next life, we will see not only 99%, even the 1% from this world will also join that 99% in the hereafter, and it will become a full 100% of Allah's mercy. Now, do we get a share of that mercy? Can we get a share of that mercy? How do we get a share of that mercy? We are going to talk about two main things tonight. First is the discussion on the family, and second is the discussion on Ahlul Bayt, and then we'll finish with Masa'ib. We have an alarming situation at the moment that we see the families are not operating on mercy. Families are dysfunctional. Families are breaking apart. Divorces are rising. Children becoming estranged from parents. Sometimes parents even becoming estranged from children. This is an alarming situation. Whereas the Quran tells us that the recipe for a successful family is what? وَجَعَلَ بَيْنَكُمْ مَوَدَّةً وَرَحْمَةً. He has placed between you, when you're in your families, mawadda, love, and mercy. He uses the same word, rahmah. But when you have no mercy in the family, then the family becomes dysfunctional. It doesn't function properly. What you are meant to benefit from your family, you are not able to benefit anymore. So now we need to discuss one more thing. The general level of mercy and the special level of mercy. This is our next discussion for the next few minutes. Sallu ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Khub, Azizan, listen very carefully now. Allah has a general level of mercy and He has a specific level of mercy. Rahmat-e Aam-e Khuda, Rahmat-e Khas-e Khuda. His general level of mercy is represented by His name, Ar-Rahman. Ar-Rahman means that His mercy, alaykum as-salam, His mercy reaches everyone and everything. Everything in this universe has received the general level of Allah's mercy. From life to sustenance to creation and all of these things, all of these different things, whether you're a believer, a non-believer, Shia, Sunni, doesn't matter, animal, stone, plant, atom, star, moon, sun, everything has received the general level of Allah's mercy. Very few will receive Allah's special mercy. His special mercy, Rahmat-e Khas-e Khuda, is represented by his name Ar-Rahim. Ar-Rahim is his special mercy. This doesn't reach everyone. This is reserved for those who are very special, very close to him, those who are believers in him, those who walk in his way, they try hard in his path. This is called Rahmat-e Rahimiyyeh, the Rahmat of the Rahim name of Allah. This is reserved for very special people. Which people? First and foremost, Ahlul Bayt alayhimus salam. They receive the special mercy of Allah. Why? Because they have the capacity. They are close to him. They have worked in his way. They have fought in his way. They have sacrificed in his way. Hence they receive the special mercy of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Now, which one should we be aiming for? The general, which even reaches the animals, which even reaches the four-legged creatures that we eat? Is that okay for us? Do we want to remain in that category like the rest of creation? That we remain with the general level of Allah's mercy, which He gives to every single thing. Even the ant crawling on the floor, even the bird in the tree, they are receiving this general. Is that what Imam Zaman wants for us? Is that where we should be aiming? Islam says no. Islam says that you need to be aiming for the special mercy of Allah. Imam Khomeini says something very beautiful in his Dars-e Akhlaq. He says, Fark man wa buz in nist ke man insan wa buz insan nist. The difference between me and a goat is not that I'm a human and the goat is not human. Fark ma in as ke man mitunam insan besham, buz nemitune insan beshe. The difference between us is this: I have the capacity to be a human being. The goat doesn't have the capacity to be a human being. Otherwise, much of our lives is the same as the animal life. The animal likes good food, we like good food. The animal likes somewhere warm to sleep, we like somewhere warm to sleep. The animal goes about the things that it does, we also do these things. This is not the life that was meant for us. This life that we are sometimes leading is not the life that is meant for us. We have to do these things, yes, just to function as bodies in this physical world. Otherwise, we are losing out on this special mercy of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Mercy is a two-way street. And now we come on to the family discussion. Mercy is a two-way street. Mercy in your life. You want to attract this special mercy of Allah? You want to bring this into your life? You want to be one of those special people to expand your capacity of the heart and receive more and more of the share of Allah's mercy? Then guess what? You have to be merciful to others. This is a golden rule. There's no debate about this. To receive, you have to give. Amirul Mu'mineen alayhi salatu wasalam says, Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ala Ajibtu. Ajibtu means what? Means like, I'm so surprised. I'm so like almost shocked. Ajibtu. Liman yarju. That someone hopes for mercy from the one above him. How does he not be merciful to the one below him? I'm shocked at this. Amirul Mu'mineen says, you want mercy from the one above you, you don't want to be merciful to the one below you. Families is a two-way street. To get the mercy, you must be merciful to your family members. Amirul Mu'mineen again, there are three hadith, very similar. I'll quote all three for some inspiration from our first Imam. Man tarham ruhim. Whoever you are merciful to, man yarham ruhim. Whoever is merciful will be treated with mercy. Man lam yarham, lam yurham. Whoever doesn't display mercy to others will not be treated with mercy himself. So in the family, this is the first point. To receive mercy, you must be merciful. Once we discuss mercy, we open up a whole chapter of new ways of behaving and new ways of interacting with one another. Usually what we do, we tend to deal with one another almost in a very cold manner. This is my right, this is your right. I have this right, you have this right. Families don't function like this. Families will not be able to operate in this way. If we start talking about rights all the time, this becomes a very unattractive thing that we are doing. Once we involve mercy and compassion into these discussions, you'll see how beautiful the family will become. That is okay. You can forego your right sometimes. I can forego my right sometimes. You don't give me a hard time when I mess up. I won't give you a hard time when you mess up, because everyone messes up. So the first thing is that mercy is a two-way street. Second thing which I wanted to discuss tonight, of paramount fundamental importance. One of the things, perhaps maybe the biggest thing, that removes the mercy from your life. You have seen sometimes, you've done everything right, but yet you can't achieve what you want to achieve. You've done everything right in your life. You've done everything right in a certain thing, a project, a work, an exam, revision, whatever it may be. You want to get married, your marriage is not happening. You want to find a job, job is not coming. Your business is not successful, but you've done everything right in this business. You're just not getting tawfiq. You've told yourself again and again, I must recite namaz-e-shab, I want to recite Quran, I want to read books, but it's just not happening. Why? What is causing this tawfiq to be taken away from us? One of the biggest, perhaps the biggest thing, is called aqul walidain. Upsetting your parents. If our parents are upset, believe me, that tawfiq goes away. The tawfiq which Allah wants to give us will not reach us, because parents are upset. Now what is aqul walidain? Someone tell me, what is aq? What does it mean, aqul walidain? Is it something, for example, that we have to say? Is there a formula to say that, now I disown you or I do something to you? Is it an intention in the mind? What is aqul walidain? Many people think it's like this. There is a specific set of words that we have to say these things to make our children aq. No, there's no specific words to say. If a parent is upset with their child, that is a form of aq. That itself is uquq. That itself is upset. The parent doesn't even have to say anything. But if they harbor these ill feelings and hurt emotions and sentiments, that is aq. It has a very detrimental effect. Amirul Mu'mineen says, Inna hadhihi al-qulub aw'iyatun, fa khayruha aw'aha. Amirul Mu'mineen says that your hearts, these hearts, are like containers. The best of them is the most expansive of them. Bada dil, motu dil. The best of them is the most expansive of them. How does this heart expand and contract? What do we mean by this? This is a reality in Islam. We discuss this a lot in Irfan. How the heart constricts sometimes. You find no energy, no oomph in your life, no excitement. You're down, depressed, anxious. Sometimes, wow, you get to pray, you get your things get done, your work is good, everything is happening in the right way, you're successful. All of a sudden it constricts again after a few years, and then it expands again. This expansion and constriction, this has its own philosophy and its own causes. One of the causes of constriction of the heart is upsetting the parents. Aqul walidain. So, we have this hadith from the Holy Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. The Holy Prophet says, Innal jannata la yujadu rihuha min masirati khamsa mi'ati am. Heaven is so powerful. The attraction of heaven is so powerful, its smell can be smelt from a distance of 500 years. In other words, you can be a long way off from heaven but still have aspirations. You'll still feel I can get there. You can be a long, long, long way away, 500 years. But you'll still feel, you know what? I can see the light at the end of the tunnel. So he says that it is 500, its smell reaches 500 years away. وَلَا يَجِدُهَا آقٍ. But the person who has upset his parents will not be able to smell it. In other words, he's even further away from it. In other words, for him, it's a long journey, very difficult. So when you upset your parents, when you upset your family members, believe me, this is having an immediate negative, detrimental effect upon our hearts. Is it only for the hereafter? No. This is one of those things. There are a few things that we read about in the ahadith whose punishment Allah gives straight away. He doesn't wait. He doesn't wait for the hereafter. He'll give you here and He'll give you there as well. One of them is upsetting the parents. Your business is not good. Income is not proper. Your health is not good, for example. Yes, there can be other causes, but one of them is this. Make sure your parents are happy with you. Imam Hadi alayhi salatu wasalam says, Allahumma salli ala Muhammad. Al-uquq yu'aqqibul qilla wa yu'addi ila dhilla. He says, upsetting your parents will bring about a restriction in your sustenance. Your sustenance income will become less. And it will result in your disgrace. Somehow maybe you lose your reputation. Somehow people will not respect you as much. This is all linked together. See, Allah has created this world. Mukhi sahab, jara time fair tha, you're okay with that? Alhamdulillah. He can't deny. You see, you ask someone from the mimbar, they'll never say no, by the way. Yeah, this is one of the tricks. So, the thing is that Allah has created this world in a way that nothing happens by accident. Nothing happens by accident. Everything has a hisab. Everything is calculated. There are no accidents in this universe. Something happens, something has caused it. Something went wrong, you have to trace it. Something now today, all of a sudden you feel restricted in your heart. Think, what did I do? Something I must have done for this to happen. There are some other causes which are not in our control. I don't want to go there at all. That what other people can do to us, that is a separate discussion. Let's not touch that debate at the moment. But what have I done to bring this kind of thing in my life? Very important. Insan has to be aware of this. Everything in this world is interconnected. Everything has its place. This aqul walidain is a big one. Perhaps the one that restricts the heart the most is this, upsetting the parents. Now, we have two parents. Rasulullah has given us a golden piece of advice. Someone comes to him and says, advise me. He says, be good to your mother. He says, okay, advise me. He says, be good to your mother. He says, no problem. Chashm, as we say in Farsi. I'll do it, don't worry. Advise me. He says, be good to your mother. 3 times. Then he says, advise me. He says, be good to your father. Once. This is not to create any division between how you treat your mom and dad. This is just to emphasize that women's role in this is very crucial. The role of the women in the family is very crucial. Why be good to your mother so much? Hasn't your father got the haqq of being good to him? Why this inequality in Islam? Why women get this preferential treatment? You know, usually we say, well, we don't say, I don't say for sure, but outside in the wider world, they say that Islam treats its women badly. I think if you analyze, it treats the men badly, if anything. Yeah? That's a flippant comment. I don't mean it literally, but if you really analyze, you'll see the women are treated much nicer. Yes, they have other challenges as well, but these things are much more emphasized for women. Why so much for women? Why? Why the mothers? Why when you bring a gift home, give it to your daughters first? Why? Because of their nature, they are able to absorb and channel the mercy of Allah better. Because of their nature, because of the way they have been created, because of their relatively softer, more delicate kind of nature, they reflect and absorb the mercy of God much better. So you need to be more merciful to them because they thrive on that. Typically, they thrive on that. Hence, women, sisters, and the women of the family, the women of the wider family, they have a very important role here. Hence, so much emphasis on keeping them happy. However, in today's time, we have a little bit of a problem. Quran says something very interesting. Ar-rijalu qawwamuna ala nisa. Men are managers of the women. It doesn't say an-nisa qawwamat ala rijal. It doesn't say the women are the managers and maintainers of men. Islam has given very specific roles and identities to each and every person in the family unit. It has given men certain duties. It has given women certain roles and responsibilities. Men have to act in a certain way. Women have to act in a certain way. What we are finding in our day and age is perhaps the loss of these roles, the lack of masculinity in the men, the lack of femininity in the women. See, when you're a manager of someone, you don't bully them. So a man being a manager or the maintainer of his wife, he's not allowed to bully. He's not allowed to intimidate. He's not allowed to abuse. That's not the meaning that Allah wanted us to take from this verse. At the same time, the woman is also not allowed to challenge all the time, to undermine all the time, to bully all the time, to bully at all and undermine at all. Not allowed. This is where mercy comes in. Can we let some things go? Can we trust a little bit? Can we build this loving, merciful relationship in the house? If we lose these things, if we lose these roles, Allah has given the man masculinity for a reason. Don't let it go. Be a man. Act like a man. Allah has given you femininity for a reason. You don't need to be like men. Be like women. This is how the society, family will function. So these toxic kinds of things in our society of today, these will not work. These will not make a family function according to the Islamic way of looking at things. Masculinity has its role, femininity has its role. These two things, when they come together, they produce a good family, stable, upright, on the right path, working towards Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, working towards Ahlul Bayt. Note what I said, femininity, not feminism. If you want to understand that better, then I'll have to let you Google it because we don't have time. Not feminism, femininity. This needs to be there. Everyone has their role. Everyone has been put in a certain place to do a certain thing. If we upset that order of God, why would we? Why play around with this thing? If we know that the name of Allah governing all of these things is Al-Hakim, the wise, why would I try to be more wise than my Lord? And I try to disrupt things and change the order that He's put in place. Sallu ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. So we have one more discussion which I'm not going to do now because time is of the essence, which is the role of, again, a little bit more about the roles of men and women in this, and also the role of Ahlul Bayt. We'll put that for tomorrow. It fits in nicely with what we're going to discuss anyway, inshallah. Tonight, let us spend the last few minutes remembering, we talked about mothers, didn't we? We talk about the mothers in our own families, how they reflect and absorb the mercy of Allah. I ask you now to reflect upon the mother of Aba Abdullah, Janab Fatima. If our mothers are able to be so merciful to us, then I ask you to reflect upon the mercy of Bibi Fatima. How merciful must she be? How much special she will be, that the Imams of Ahlul Bayt would become humble in front of her. When they remembered her, they would be humbled. When they thought about her, they would be humbled. How much respect they had for Janab Fatima. This same Janab Fatima is mentioned a number of times in this sad tale of Ashura. The first time, perhaps, I'm going to select just a few to recite this Masaib. One of the first times is when Hussein ibn Ali is leaving Medina and he has to go bid farewell to the grave of Janab Fatima. They say that when Hussein went to the grave of Rasulullah, he went normally, just like a normal person as you would. But when he went to the grave of Janab Fatima, it was like a young child running to the arms of its mother. Hussein visits the grave of Janab Fatima. Then we have another mention of Janab Fatima on the night of Ashura. Abba Abdullah is with his companions. Abba Abdullah tells all of his companions that you will be martyred, you will be martyred, you will be martyred. They said, Abba Abdullah, tell us the details. He says, come with me. Let us go into Karbala. I will show you where each of you will fall. He shows one person, you will be killed here. Another person, you will fall here. Another person, you will be killed like this. They said, Abba Abdullah, now show us where will you fall? Where is your place of shahadat? He says, come, let me show you. He showed them an area. They said to him, Abba Abdullah, in our places where we were going to fall, in our places, there were all stones and everything was there. But your place looks clean, as if someone has cleaned your area that you are going to fall. He says, do you not know? My mother Fatima came and she has cleaned this area. This is another report we find. The third report that we hear about this wonderful journey of Ahlul Bayt towards Sham. This wonderful report we find. They say that Janab Zainab was always very careful to continuously count the children that were on the journey. She was always worried that maybe when I'm not paying attention, one child will fall. I'll miss them. They will remain inside the desert. At one point, she counts the heads of the children. She says she sees everyone is accounted for, except for one of the young girls of Abba Abdullah. She fails to see her. Then she looks behind her and she sees that indeed she has fallen off and she lies in the desert alone. The caravan had passed her by and it had gone ahead. She makes herself fall from the camel and she runs towards this child. They say by the time Janab Zainab reaches this child, the child is in the arms of a lady who is covered from head to toe in chadar. When she looks at this lady, she says, who are you? No one has shown us even a moment of kindness since we left Karbala. She looks at Zainab and she says, Zainab, did you not recognize your own mother? I have been with you. I have been watching you. I have been protecting you with my prayers. And the final mention which I wanted to say is that at that almost last moment of the life of Abba Abdullah, they say when Imam Hussein was crawling towards the khaymas, towards the tents, because the enemies had started to attack, thinking that Abba Abdullah had already died, and he began to show them that no, indeed, I am not dead yet. Do not attack the tents. As he was crawling, in the words of Imam Zaman, was Shimrun jalisun ala sadri. Shimr was seated upon Hussein when he took the dagger and laid it on the throat of Abba Abdullah. There is a report that a lady's voice was heard. What was she saying? She was saying, Waladi, Waladi, Qataluka Atishana, my son, they have slaughtered you while you are thirsty. Allah la'natullahi al-qawmi al-zalimin wa sayalamu alladhina zalamu ayya munqalibin yanqalibun mata min Hussein.